are you doing?
I'm burying you.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
You're waking the neighbors!
No.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most disturbing true stories in history.
Far from struggling, the skeletons appear suspended in the last moment of life.
For this list, we'll be looking at creepy, haunting, and downright bizarre tales from throughout human history. Before proceeding, keep in mind that many of the stories on this list will deal with violence, gore, and death. So please consider this your content warning. What is the most horrifying true story you've ever heard? Be sure to share it with us in the comments below. Number 10. Villisca Axe Murder House. While this wasn't the most famous disaster of 1912, it is the most disturbing. On the morning of June 10th, 1912, Mary Peckham of Villisca, Iowa, noticed that her neighbours, the Moore family, had not yet come out of their house to do their morning chores. She and Josiah Moore's brother Ross investigated the Moore home, only to discover that the two parents, 4 children, and 2 young guests had been murdered. The grisly crime attracted nationwide attention, even taking over newspaper headlines. Although there were several suspects connected to the murders, this crime ultimately remains unsolved more than a century later. Number 9. British Pet Massacre. There is no shortage of horrifying tales related to World War II, but one of the worst started before the war even broke out. In preparation for food shortages during the upcoming war, the British government distributed pamphlets titled Advice to Animal Owners to the public. The pamphlet suggested that pets should be moved to the countryside if possible.
Oh, no, I won't let you take him. You go away, or I'll bite you myself.
Of course, this option was not feasible for everyone, and the pamphlet encouraged owners to humanely destroy their pets if necessary. It even had an advertisement for a pistol that could be used for the task. Within a week, approximately 750,000 pets were euthanized. We're definitely going to hug our fur babies extra tight tonight. Number 8. The Tucker telephone device. It's no secret that the US justice system needs a major overhaul, but at least this horrifying practice is no longer in place. In the 1960s, the Tucker telephone was invented by A.E. Rollins. The resident physician at a prison farm in Arkansas, Rollins transformed a crank phone into a powerful torture device. Inmates at the prison were attached to the telephone, which would shoot electrical currents through their bodies. The sessions lasted until the inmates were on the edge of losing consciousness and caused irreversible damage to organs and mental health. Although the device's use was discontinued in 1968, its effects remained with its victims for the rest of their lives. Number 7. The Life of Locusta. Considered by some to be the first recorded serial killer in history, this notorious poisons expert was a fave weapon among Roman emperors and empresses. Locusta's reputation for being a skilled poisoner landed her in prison by the year AD 54. While she was imprisoned, the Empress Agrippina the Younger allegedly recruited Locusta to help her poison her husband.
Say, you've got a very unusual sort of a job.
It has its responsibilities. Official poisoner to the court of Caesar Nero.
Agrippina's son Nero was notorious for his cruelty, tortured and threatened Locusta until she gave him poison to help him secure his place as emperor. Nero later released Locusta from prison and gifted her with an estate and a horde of students. Locusta was ultimately executed by Nero's successor, Galba.
I wonder who'll have the honor of being given this.
Number 6. Attack of the Dead Men. World War I was filled with nightmarish stories of human brutality, especially when it came to chemical warfare, but this one is hands down the most disturbing. During this 1915 battle between German and Russian troops, the German forces bombarded the Russian soldiers with chlorine and bromine.
Diana, the gas.
The village. These poisonous gases devastated the Russian troops, burning their skin and causing them to cough up blood. Nevertheless, the Russian soldiers marched forward, determined to continue fighting the army that had poisoned them. Their gruesome appearance terrified the German troops, who believed they were being attacked by zombies, and subsequently fled from them. Number 5. The imprisonment of Elisabeth Fritzl.
Da waren die Kinder und da sind wir gesessen. Er hat alle getäuscht, alle, durch die Bank.
We've discussed some absolutely evil people throughout this video, but this story shows the darkest depravity of mankind. In 1984, 18-year-old Elisabeth Fritzl disappeared without a trace. Weeks later, her mother, Rosemarie, received a letter from Elisabeth, where she claimed to have run away. However, Elisabeth was trapped in the Fritzl home, held captive in a basement chamber by her own father, Joseph, for more than 2 decades.
Elle s'ouvre sur une autre pièce qui est un sas, qui lui-même s'ouvre sur une autre porte qui ne s'ouvre que par l'extérieur, et seul Fritzl connaît la combinaison.
The monstrous Joseph assaulted his daughter, forcing her to give birth 7 times. Joseph stole 3 of the children and claimed they had been dropped off at the Fritzl doorstep. Elisabeth was finally able to escape in 2008, and Joseph is serving a life sentence. Number 4. Operation Wandering Soul.
Give the baby to Mama, son. Yeah. Come on, Papa, son. Come on. Give the baby to Mama, son. Come on.
War brings out the worst in people, and this particular effort definitely highlights that horror. During the Vietnam War, the 6th Psychological Operations Battalion of the United States Army psychologically tortured the Viet Cong forces by broadcasting sounds of dying soldiers. Like many cultures around the world, Vietnamese culture calls for proper burials to allow souls to move on and prevent hauntings. The sounds of the dying soldiers echoing throughout the jungle terrified the Viet Cong forces, who believed they were being haunted by the souls of their fallen comrades. The ghost tape not only caused psychological damage, but led to many defections from the Viet Cong.
UVC? Yeah, UVC. You Viet Cong, huh?
Number 3. Joan of Arc and Gilles de Rais.
The perennial question in cases like these is why?
In both religion and history, Joan of Arc is remembered as a hero and a symbol of unwavering faith and courage. However, one of her top companions in arms, Gilles de Rais, is remembered as a monster. Despite fighting alongside the virtuous Joan of Arc, de Rais led a wicked life after the saint was burned at the stake in 1431.
The following year, de Rais began preying on young victims in gruesome ways we can't even go into here.
De Rais was arrested in 1440 and executed shortly thereafter. It is suspected he committed between 100 and 200 murders, but some estimates go as high as more than 600 victims.
He's blaming mulled wine, that Christmas drink. So I guess he's saying that he was drunk a lot.
Number 2. Buried alive.
So I guess it's really over.
I'd say you trying to bury me alive pretty much did it.
Nowadays, we're lucky enough to have medical advancements and testing to determine whether or not a person has actually passed away, and usually be right about it. However, in the past, people did not always have access to means to ensure a body was actually unoccupied before burial. Because of this, many people were buried alive, usually as the result of a condition called catalepsy, which renders patients rigid and unresponsive. In the 1800s, there were numerous reports of people accidentally being buried alive, only to be discovered too late. Even as recently as 2020, patients have been taken as far as the funeral home before their still alive state was discovered. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Mount Vesuvius.
If these people on the beach were suddenly engulfed in dust and debris and ash at 500 degrees centigrade, these people would have been dead within 2 seconds.
The AD 79 eruption of Mount Vesuvius is well known, but scientists and historians have recently uncovered the true horrors the volcano's victims faced. Although Pompeii is the most famous, it was far from the only town impacted by the disaster. Herculaneum was located only a few miles from the volcano, and it was in the direct path of its hot lava and gas. Mount Vesuvius perfectly preserved the skeletons of its victims in Herculaneum, allowing scientists to study their bodies in detail. The heat from the eruption caused people's blood to boil, flesh to melt, and maybe most horrifying of all, skulls to explode. Although they perished within seconds, the image alone is disturbing enough to keep us awake at night.